All right, the Senate Committee on Government is called to order. Will the Secretary please call the roll?
Senator Bravo.
Here.
Senator Diaz. Here. Senator Farnsworth. Here. Senator Kavanaugh. Here. Senator Huey.
Here.
Senator Rogers. Senator Hoffman.
Here. All right. There are no minutes. So we will approve multiple meetings at the next committee meeting. We are going to begin with 2221.
Mr. Chair and members, House Bill 2221 prohibits a municipality from reducing the annual operating budget for a law enforcement agency to any amount below the previous year's budget unless outlined conditions apply. The bill exempts a municipality from the prohibition if the operating budget for all other departments have been reduced at the same rate as the budget of the law enforcement agency. The municipality has not experienced growth. The law enforcement agency received a temporary increase in the previous year, and the new budget restores the budget to the previous amount, where the municipality does not have the monies required to continue the same annual operating budget. The bill stipulates that if the law enforcement agency's budget is reduced because the municipality does not have sufficient funds, the municipality must reduce the budgets for all other departments or agencies first, and may not reduce the budget for the law enforcement agency in an amount greater than the reduction to all other municipal departments or agencies. If a municipality reduces the budget for a law enforcement agency without meeting the outlined requirements, the municipality must notify the state treasurer, who must then withhold any state shared monies from the municipality in the amount of the reduction to the law enforcement agency's budget, except for monies that the municipality certifies as being necessary to pay for debt services or bonds on pre-existing long-term obligations. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
All right, any questions for staff? Perfect. Yeah, that'd be great. Okay, bill sponsor's not here, so let's move to testimony. While we're getting our first testifier up here, I do want to let everybody know HB 2113 will be held today, so we will only be doing 2 bills. So hopefully we'll be out of here quick. Go ahead, Mr. Vice Chair.
Mr. Chairman, we have 2 speakers, Leo Brown and Marshall Penmantil.
Okay, who wants to go first? Don't all bum rush the front so fast.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members. For the record, Marshall Pimentel with the League of Arizona Cities and Towns here today in reluctant opposition to House Bill 2221. I say reluctant because I don't want this position to be misconstrued as one against police, but we do view this as a fundamental issue of local control. This bill, while well-intentioned, fundamentally undermines local control by restricting the ability of cities and towns to responsibly manage their public safety budgets. Local elected officials are best positioned to assess community needs and make budgetary decisions that balance public safety priorities with fiscal responsibility. While we understand the desire to ensure strong support for law enforcement, House Bill 2221 fails to recognize the many legitimate reasons a police department's budget may be adjusted, including the following reasons, such as administrative realignment. Some police departments may have civilian divisions within their departments, such as code enforcement, public records, community outreach programming. So if they move those to other departments, that may be for efficiency's sake. Contracted service changes. If a city previously provided law enforcement services to a neighboring community, and that community then starts its own police department budget, that would naturally reduce the other community's department budget. Technology-driven efficiencies, investments in software, digital storage, and body camera systems can reduce costs while maintaining or even improving service. There may be personnel shifts. Hiring new officers at lower salaries after senior officers have retired can result in budget reductions without cutting staffing levels. And economic downturns. Local governments, just like the state, have to remain nimble to respond to changing economic conditions. Public safety often makes up the largest majority of a city or town's budget, and local officials must have the ability to adjust spending based on actual community needs, just as the legislature does when crafting the state budget. Finally, there's no evidence that Arizona cities and towns are defunding their police departments, and I want to make the point that if this bill were presented to us in the inverse and a future legislature were to require us to reallocate or reduce funding, our position would be exactly the same. Ultimately, a vote against this bill is not a vote against police, but it is a vote for local control. And with that, I'm happy to take any questions.
Questions?
Mr. Chair,
Senator Cube.
thank you for coming, Marshall. So has a single city or town in Arizona reduced their police budget in the last 15 years or so?
Mr. Chair, Senator Cubey, not that we are aware of. believe the last time we saw any reductions in public safety was during the Great Recession, which is probably more than 15 years ago now.
And, Mr. Chair,
Senator
Mr. Chair,
Cube.
another question. I know, I hail from the city of Tempe, and I know that there's an overall budget cut across all departments for 10% for every department. So this wouldn't be allowed under this bill, for the city to have the flexibility just to reduce its spending across the board?
Mr. Chair, Senator Cubie, I suppose that is one exception outlined in the bill, but like you said, it does require cutting across the board, and that would include other public safety functions like our fire departments, our courts, things of that nature. So again, it does provide that exception, but it would still require reductions everywhere else.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Did you offer amendment suggestions to the bill sponsor in the House?
Mr. Chair, Senator Hoffman, I did not offer amendments. We did see this bill as undermining local control. So I talked to Senator or Representative Marshall, and he understands our point of view on this. I think this is the third year in a row that he's run the bill, and we've agreed to disagree.
Got it. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, Mr. Brown. Do we have Leo
Thank you.
Brown here? We do not. Is there anybody else wishing to testify on this bill? Okay, then with that, we are going to hold it for now. We'll wait until Senator Rogers gets here so she can weigh in on the vote. And we're going to move to 2062.
Mr. Chair, members, House Bill 2062 requires any policy, program, rule, or law that prohibits sex discrimination to prohibit the unfair treatment of a female or male in relation to similarly situated member of the opposite sex, and specifies that the term equal with respect to equality of the sexes does not mean the same as identical. The state and a political subdivision of the state may provide a separate single-sex environment for a male or a female if the sexes are not similarly situated with respect to biology. The bill outlines that public entities that collect vital statistics relating to sex must identify each natural person as either male or female. House Bill 2062 provides statutory definitions for boy, girl, female, male, woman, man, father, and mother, and specifies that the term sex is a person's biological sex, either male or female at birth, only includes two sexes, and that every individual is either a male or female, that the term sex is objective and fixed and does not include gender identity or any other term that is intended to convey a person's subjective sense of self and may not be used as a synonym or substitute. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions for staff? Okay, seeing none, we have the bill sponsor, Representative Fink. Thank you for making time to be here, unlike Mr. Marshall.
I'll let him know that. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Lisa Fink. I am a representative for LD 27. And everyday Americans know that a woman is an adult human female. You know this, your constituents know it too, and yet today a powerful group of
Excuse
activists-
me. Unacceptable. If that happens again, you will be removed from this room. Okay? The Democrats yesterday, last night, in the joint session of Congress, acted that exact same way. It will not be tolerated, whether that's here or in Congress, so knock it off. Does everybody get it? Representative Fink.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So today, a powerful group of activists seek to convince judges and unelected bureaucrats that men who identify as women have an unfettered right to access women's spaces. House Bill 2062, the Arizona Sex-Based Terms Act, is a tool for stopping this sort of interpretive outreach and overreach and judicial activism. The bill was carefully drafted to ensure that it does not create any special rights for women, nor does it take any rights from anybody else. So it simply establishes the foundation for policy discussions about complex issues related to men and women. The Arizona Sex-Based Terms Act does three things. First, it clarifies the definitions of words already used in state law, words such as woman, man, male, female, and sex, which is necessary because we can't prevent sex discrimination if we can't define sex. Second, It ensures that publicly collected data regarding men and women reflect biology. It does not require public entities to start collecting new information, nor does it prevent public entities to also collect data on gender identity. It simply ensures that publicly collected sex-based statistics are accurate. Third, this bill articulates Arizona's important interest in offering single-sex spaces to advance equal opportunity, to protect privacy, safety, and fairness. It does not require single-sex spaces, it just solely protects those that are offered from legal attack. And it preserves our right, the legislature's right, to change things and to figure out how to handle situations based on this information. And I stand for questions.
Any questions for the bill sponsor?
Mr. Chair,
Senator Kuby.
so is being trans a choice?
It is a choice.
I say no.
That's not
So I have more
a question.
questions,
Yeah,
Mr. Chair.
Let's actually stick to questions. Go ahead.
Well, I responded to her. Yeah, okay. So would this bill deny a transgender person the right to free expression, to express who they are and
No.
express their identity?
Mr. Chair,
Explain.
Senator Kirby, no.
Mr. Chair, please explain how that would do, how it not deny someone's right to free expression.
Mr. Chair, Senator Kirby,
Cue.
this does not deny this expression because they can still choose to be trans. But what this bill does is it makes sure that the data that's collected and how it's interpreted in law, and it, again, really clarifies the statute, what is a male, what is a female, because that is extremely important because those laws were made in regards to male and female, man, woman, father, mother. And so this is explaining that. And also, again, the single-sex spaces to protect those as well.
Mr. Chair,
Follow up?
so I'm a postmenopausal woman. I'm proud of it. And so am I only a woman because at one point in my life I was capable of having children?
Mr. Chair,
You may.
Senator Kirby, yes,
Kirby.
it's reproductive. So yes, you are a woman because of that.
Mr. Chair, so you only define a woman based on if she has ovum, if she has eggs, or once had eggs?
Mr. Chair, Senator Kirby, yes, that is, I went through anatomy, physiology, all of that, yes.
Mr. Chair, what if you're intersex?
Mr. Chair, Senator Kirby, there's laws in regards to intersex, and those laws are not being changed with this bill.
Okay, I'll look at that.
Just as a quick aside, since this is probably your first interaction with Senator Kuby, it's pronounced like a quarterback, QB.
QB.
Yes. Sounds good, thank you.
I had to learn that one also.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chair,
Do you
I'm going
follow?
to ask a question. I kind of know the answer, but I just want it sort of you to state it publicly. So, do you believe gender identity and gender expression, which you're attempting to regulate, is a protected form of speech?
Mr. Chair, Senator, I say QB, did I say
QB,
that right?
uh-huh.
Okay. This is not about protecting expression of speech. This is about defining what's in the law in regards to male, female, and parents, father, mother. So that doesn't address this.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, just real quick, just to that point, this doesn't deal with individuals' right of expression, correct?
Mr.
Yes.
Chair, correct.
Simply deals with governmental definitions and how the government treats, defines these things. Is that right?
Mr. Chair, that is correct. And also it does, again, also in offering single-sex spaces, and that's it.
Yeah. Okay. Do you follow?
Do I follow? Yeah, Mr. Chair, but if you're thinking of you're thinking of government documents, passports, IDs, that's very much your expression of who you are. And
No,
as you,
it's not.
well, it's and how the government
Did-
sees you, and how the
It's
government
not.
sees you as not a person and
It's
doesn't
not.
identify who you identify yourself to be.
That's absolutely incorrect. That's just on its face. That's factually wrong. So,
Well,
I mean, I understand that Democrats like to say those things. It doesn't make them right just because you guys say them. So,
Mr. Chair, I mean, well, we can get into debating the bill. Do we have questions?
yeah. Any other questions for Representative Fink? There's a lengthy list. I think actually we may have the record for government committee on the number of testifiers. So if you want to move to that, we can. And I'll give Representative Fink closing comments. So if you guys have follow-up questions that you think of between now and then, you're welcome to do that. Does that work?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Representative Fink. All right. Wendy, Senator Rogers, if you don't mind, he's been organizing the list of speakers.
Good.
So can we?
Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Senator Farnsworth, would you go ahead and call up our first speaker?
Erica Kipler, then Ruth Carter, then Gabby Hoffmeister.
All right, so for everybody in the room, if you guys want to kind of queue up or at least, be aware that's the order, okay? So just that way we can be quick on this. I'm not going to limit your time, okay? I know a lot of committees will put like a 1 minute or a 2 minute timer on this, okay? We're not going to do that, although if you take advantage of it, we will institute it. So be courteous in your comments so that no one behind you gets limited in their time. Does that make sense for everybody? Okay.
Chairman Hoffman, members of the committee, thank you for allowing me to speak. My name is Erica Kepler, representing myself. This bill tries to erase transgender people, a harmless minority simply trying to live our own lives and pursue our own happiness. It rigidly defines a person's sex in law in a way that is inescapable and utterly trivial. There is far more to a person's gender and the lives they live than the microscopic production of sperm or ova. It drives a hard wedge through society and forces people into two legal social classes based on biology with no ability to move out of them. That is about as un-American as you can imagine. This bill makes it impossible for a transgender person to have the gender they live every day legally recognized with no compelling public interest to justify it. It forces us into a dangerous situation while it simultaneously degrades and humiliates us. Transgender people are people. We are Americans. We are Arizonans. We are harmless. We have committed no crime. We do not deserve this. But this bill is really a Trojan horse intent on rolling back the women's rights movement. Paragraph A effectively says that sex discrimination only applies within members of the same sex, but not between sexes. It's a separate but equal clause that will make litigating sex discrimination cases extremely difficult. Paragraph B would give any political body in the state the power to make any space segregated. It lays the groundwork for sex-segregated society in any place or level instituted by law. It could lead to legal categories of men's work and women's work. A city could say that only men could be police officers or firemen, or that only women could be school teachers or nurses. They only need a rational basis to claim the similar situation. In a free society, the government does not tell you what you are. You tell the government what you are, and the government has to deal with it. This is a cruel attack on a harmless community. It would destroy our lives. Have some human decency and vote no on this assault on innocent people. Thank you.
All right, questions for the speaker? Okay.
Yes, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair. I do
Yeah.
have a question.
Sure, you may.
So do you believe that this bill will endanger the right to freedom of expression for a class of people?
Chairman, Senator Kuby, absolutely. Transgender people suffer from an enormous amount of discrimination. We are the most murdered minority in terms of our population of any minority group internationally. Having documentation that does not match our identity puts us in a dangerous situation when we have to out ourselves and we have to present identification. Certainly the issue of passports is a big thing. Well, that's not a state issue, but still is true in ID, that forcing an ID that does not match what we present defeats the entire purpose of what the ID is about. There's two kinds of information on a driver's license. There's information that says you go with the driver's license, and there's information the driver's license tells about you, like your name, address, and driver's license number. A picture is a type of ID that says you go with the license. The sex on a driver's license says you go with the license. Nobody looks at a driver's license to find out what your sex is. They look at the card, they look at you, do you go with the card? My card should say F. Otherwise, it defeats its purpose. That denying documentation that matches our lives creates problems and inconveniences and outright dangers in our lives everywhere that we go.
Mr. Chair.
Passionate response. Go ahead.
Yeah. And thank you for being here. I know it takes a lot of courage in these dark times to come forward. So how could this bill lead to increased harassment? You mentioned that at the end of your statement. How could you see this acting, real life on the ground? How could it lead to increased harassment or violence against trans people?
Chairman Hoffman, Senator Kuby, transgender people in America are living in an increased state of fear and tension in the current political climate.
Hold on, real quick. The question was, how does this bill increase that
And I
risk?
am prefacing that.
Okay, but let's stick to this bill. Okay?
This bill will create a situation
This bill doesn't deal
where
with other things that you think may or may not exist out
the
there.
question was, how does it increase our
How-
element of
how does-
danger?
Hold on, excuse me.
Go ahead.
How does defining these terms lead to what she asked?
And that is exactly what I'm describing.
Okay, let's get to it, because we've got a lot of people who have to go.
Because it is forcing our identity to be revealed, where throughout the history of transgender people in America, our primary means of survival has been to conceal the fact that we are transgender at all. And to force us into a situation where we have to expose our identity, our transgender status, puts us at exposure to the risk of prejudice and discrimination that can at times be violent. And so, yes, it exposes us to danger, and that very much ties into the political climate of the times.
So quickly, you think that, you just said that the primary way to protect yourself is to conceal this, okay? You think that the masquerading of trans activists in public libraries reading to kids and stuff is somehow concealing the trans status?
I don't, that is even less relevant to the subject matter than my talking about political climate of the times. Transgender
me.
people are not
You and
masquerading
I-
themselves. In terms of
Okay.
masquerading, I do
All
have to
right.
take issue with.
I'm gonna sit you down.
Okay.
If you deviate again. You and I are not having a debate. I'm asking you a question. If you want to respond, great. If you don't, say I don't have a comment on it, okay?
I'll have to say that the use of the term masquerading in libraries of transgender people, I don't know where that is coming from. I know that there are examples of drag queens who I personally don't consider to be part of the transgender community because they are professional performers. They don't go to the supermarket dressed like that. I go to the supermarket as this. So I don't find your question relevant to the subject matter in case you're not debating. So because it's not relevant, I don't know an answer to give you.
Okay. All right. Do you have any questions?
Mr. Chair, I have one last question. Is, from your personal experience, from your lived experience, is being trans a choice?
No, it's when you are gender dysphoric, you cannot find happiness in the sexes assigned you at birth. This is a way of finding some contentment, some happiness in our lives. And the beauty of being an American is you have a God-given right to pursue your happiness. And the fact that we have an opportunity to find a way to live a happy life, that to say that this is what we had to do was a choice is ridiculous. There's been no benefit I've gained in life from being transgender except a release of the hatred I have in being male. And where would that come from? I'm sure that Senator Hoffman delights in being male. That is inconceivable to him that he would find greater happiness in being a woman. That I don't to him to suggest that somehow this would be a choice would mean that somehow he has within him a sense of desire to follow the path that I'm on. I can't imagine that he does. It's something that comes inside of you. It's been with me since I was a little child. It has always been here. It'll always be here. And you're not going to make it go away through some act of legislation.
Thank you.
Who do we have next?
Mr.
Senator
Chair?
Farnsworth?
A
Yes.
quick question.
Yeah, quick question. We got one more question for you. Come on back
Erica?
up. We got one more question for you. Senator Kavanaugh, sorry about that.
Thank
Didn't
you,
see
no
you.
problem. What would you say to a 14-year-old biological female who finds herself in a high school shower standing naked next to a naked transgender female who outwardly is a biological male in terms of anatomy? What would you say to that person who would, for the most part, be upset and uneasy about that? What would you say to that female?
Chairman Hoffman, Senator Kavanaugh, you've been using that argument for a long time. It doesn't happen in the state. I'll say, first of all, that no one would be more insecure in that situation than a transgender person. It's a transgender person you have to feel very uncertain about, and
Mr.
they would
Chair,
avoid
Mr.
a
Chair,
situation like that at any
Mr. Chair,
cost.
I asked, what would you say to the biological female who would be upset in that situation?
Senator Hoffman, Senator Kavanaugh, I would say to her that whoever put you in that situation, whatever school they did, with a situation where there was an open communal shower, those are the people you should take an issue with.
So
that everybody should have a right of privacy, and we should have separate shower spaces. I object to the existence of communal showers. Those things should not happen.
Well, Mr. Chair, and quite frankly, I've never been comfortable myself in a communal shower, regardless of what gender is in there. So a bill that I proposed said that showers would be biological male, biological female, but accommodation would be made for those uncomfortable with that, which would be the transgender person. Are you okay with that? That would respect everybody's right to be in a shower?
Senator Hoffman, Senator Kavanaugh, the only thing I'd be okay with would be individual showers for individual people with individual privacy.
And
That's
Mr.
it.
Chair, given that we don't have $100 million to redo all of the schools around the state, right? The current situation is their communal showers. And to turn them into, each school having 50 or 100 individual showers is just not going to be done. So in view of the current situation, are you okay with communal male, communal female, and providing an alternate facility for those not comfortable doing that?
Senator Hoffman, Senator Kavanaugh, in debate on your bill, which of course is not this bill, it came up in committee that it was said by people who were educators working the field that we don't do that anymore. We don't have communal showers in the state.
Mr.
But
Chair,
again,
we
the
have communal showers. My
that's absolutely
grandson goes
not
to a
correct.
high school, and
Yeah,
they're
that's
all communal
totally not
showers.
correct.
Well, I would, Senator Hoffman, Senator Kavanaugh, certainly throughout my entire academic career, I was never naked at school. I was never showered at a communal shower. But such things can be achieved through shower curtains. You don't necessarily have to rebuild entire facilities.
Mr.
Again, the
Chair.
only situation I would find that could prove acceptable would be individual showers for individual people.
So, Mr. Chair, so how do you arrange the curtains so that in walking from a locker room where you get naked to the shower, so you're going to have like hundreds of feet of shower curtains running through schools from a locker room to the shower? It's not reasonable.
Senator Hoffman, Senator Kavanaugh, this matter is, of course, moot because you all have already made it so a transgender person cannot participate in school sports. There is no need for a transgender student to ever use a school shower because they're not allowed to participate in the activities that would cause them to use them. This matter has been addressed and it has been dealt with. It does not happen anymore.
To that point,
Yeah.
transgender students are not exempt from gym class. People other than people on competitive or non-competitive sports teams use school showers.
Mr. Chair, to that point, I don't see the
Hold on.
relevance to this question, to the bill.
Hold on.
And Mr. Chair, Senator Kuby, the testifier said it doesn't happen, that the only people only people who use this are transgendered sports participants who use showers, and since they can't, they won't. And my position is very simple. Other people do. Students who take gym classes hopefully shower after the class.
Mr. Chair, to that point, this is an entirely different bill that Mr. Kavanaugh.
Specifies that a single-sex environment includes athletics, living facilities, locker rooms, bathrooms, domestic violence shelters, and sexual assault crisis centers. No, it is not an entirely separate topic. Okay? I understand that you are uncomfortable because this is not a good exchange for your side of the aisle. Okay? But this is absolutely germane. So I'm going to let Senator Kavanaugh continue if he wishes to.
Yeah, and Mr. Chair, and I only bring it up because I have been involved with this issue for a long time, and every time I debate it, the people who oppose same biological facilities, they run into the restroom. They only want to argue with me in the restroom. They never want to run into the shower where people are naked. They deny it happens. They deny that it occurs. Well, it does occur, but I don't have any other questions.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, next speaker, Senator Farnsworth. Who do we have?
Ruth Carter, then Gabby Hoffmeister, then Andrea Darby Stewart.
State your name for the record, please, and who you represent, if anyone, or just yourself. So.
Ruth Carter, representing myself. Chairman Hoffman, members of the committee, thank you.
Ruth, could you do me a favor? Just pull that mic a little bit closer to you. It's just a little hard to hear you.
Sorry.
Thank you. If you want to move the table down, you also can do that.
I'm good.
Okay, all right.
But thank you. Thank you for this opportunity to speak to you today. I've been a licensed attorney in Arizona for over 13 years, and I believe I have the first non-binary driver's license that was issued by the state of Arizona. I am not male or female. I have never been male or female. My pronouns are they and them. My honorific is mix, spelled MX. Actually, I have the non-binary trifecta: birth certificate, driver's license, and passport. All of my IDs say non-binary or the abbreviation X. Arizona, as you probably know, is one of the most popular states for people to move to. And two of the most popular states where new Arizona residents move from are California and Washington. Two states that can issue a non-binary birth certificate at birth. So you have people moving here who only have non-binary IDs. This bill discriminates against people like them, like me. We deserve equal protection and recognition under the law. Now, when this bill was heard in the House, a representative declared that the law should reflect that all women have the chromosomes XX and all men have the chromosomes XY. But this assertion is false. This is what happens most of the time, but not all of the time. There are women who have XY chromosomes and men who have XX. And then you have people who are either singular X, XXX, XXY, or XXXY. This bill tries to erase intersex people, people who from birth are not male or female, and some of which are sterile. They cannot reproduce biologically. More than 1 in 5,000 live births is an intersex baby. Therefore, you should expect more than a dozen intersex babies to be born in Arizona each year. How could these people get an accurate birth certificate or driver's license if this law is passed? And I read this bill, and based how it is written, I legit cannot tell you if I would be classified as a man or a woman. How would the state go about identifying people like me? And to address the issue that has already come up regarding high schools and showers, this is what I would say. I believe that the idea of curtains is a good idea. I would say don't make showering mandatory. When the question came up, I kicked the question out to my friends and said, hey, when you were in high school, were you required to shower? And the majority of people said either no, or we didn't have enough time even if we wanted to because we had to get to our next class. And many people who said, yes, it was required, but you only had to get your hair wet. So for somebody who is uncomfortable, there would probably be a way to either just skip the shower, walk through it with your hair wet, and to address the issue of people walking around naked, they could use a towel. I had a classmate in high school who was very shy. And when they took PE class, they went and changed over in a bathroom stall. They could have changed in a shower stall. We had full showers. I was very lucky that I was exempt from high school PE thanks to my participation in another sport. So I know that there are ways to easily navigate around that question. And let me end by saying, think of non-binary people like people with green eyes. We are rare, but we are real. Please vote no on this bill. It's a setup for discrimination. And I'm happy to answer any questions the committee might have.
Senator Kavanaugh.
Thank you, thank you. So the number of intersex people, chromosomal differences are anywhere between 0.018% to 1.7%, depending on whose statistics you use. So let's say 1%. So are you okay with this bill applying to the 99% of the people who are identifying as a different gender than their actual chromosomes? Because you seem to have only addressed intersex people. So where do you stand on the other 99% who are a different biological sex than their identity?
The majority of people that I know don't know what their chromosomes are. I don't know what mine are, so I don't know if I can answer your question.
Mr. Chair, so you're now suggesting that in addition to defining one's gender, you can self-define your chromosomes, even though they're a biological certainty?
No, not at all. I'm wondering, is this bill calling for chromosomal testing at birth to determine what to put on that child's birth certificate?
I highly doubt that you're contemplating that.
I'm not.
It seems like an obfuscation to get out of answering a question.
Not at all. Just because because the majority of the time.
If you want time up here, okay, we're happy to give you time, but you got to answer the question. Senator Kuby, I'm sure, is going to have some questions.
Yeah.
Maybe Senator Bravo, Senator Kavanaugh, but you got to answer their questions.
No,
okay?
absolutely. And I'm just, because we know that the external genitalia does not always match what's expected on the chromosomes, I can't.
In what percentage of cases?
I do not have that number off the top of my head.
So that's just a talking point that this side throws out.
No, it's scientific fact. I just can't give you an accurate number off the top of my head.
An infinitesimally small fraction of a percent of a percent of a percent of a percent.
To
I
that
don't
point,
think it's that small.
Senator Kavanaugh. But you-
0.018
There we go.
to 18 thousandths of a percent.
It could
And
be.
I make a point, we make legislation for the reality, not the
That's right.
the extreme outlier.
I understand, and,
There wasn't a question.
oh, I'm so sorry.
Senator Kavanaugh, do you have anything else?
No, I'm good.
Senator Kuby, do you have anything? Senator Bravo?
Yes, Mr. Chair, Ruth, thank you for being here. It's been discussed today that government issue documents, the belief that they don't matter, that they're important for official purposes, but that an individual might just accept them as they are. How does denying a trans person identification documents that reflect who they are, how does that not deny their rights, or how does it deny their rights?
The things that I'm concerned about with this bill, if somebody appears to be female externally, but they have a driver's license that says male, and so they're forced to go into like a men's locker room to use, let's say, their public pool, I'm worried that that person's going to be assaulted. Those are the type of situations that I'm worried about. I'm not worried about the trans person being a threat. I'm worried about other people being a threat of violence to that person. Likewise, also in situations like prisons.
Thank you.
You may. Senator Kavanaugh.
So where do you think there would be a higher chance of a transgendered person being assaulted? When they're in a separate solitary facility that was provided to them as an accommodation, or where they're in a shower, let's say with 20 males, biological males, and they're identifying as which situation do you think has a greater chance of having problems? Try not to obfuscate.
Yeah, my brain is trying not to be sarcastic. I'm so sorry.
No, I love sarcasm.
But of course, when you're by yourself, unless you are suicidal, there's less threat of violence when you are alone. So
Okay.
obviously, I mean, as a non-binary person, I opt for the either the family facility or the gender-neutral facility, which usually is a single-user facility. For that reason.
Okay. Mr. Chair, thank you. And I will be using that quote when I defend my facilities bill in the House when it goes to committee. Thank you.
There you go. Okay. All right. Thank you very much for your testimony.
Thank you.
Gabby Hoffmeister, then Andrea Darby Stewart, then Manico Abina Archer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Senators. Thank you, Representative Fink, for giving me the opportunity to speak. And thank you, Ruth, for recognizing that I have green eyes. My name is Gabby Hoffmeister. I'm a constituent from LD 13. I'm representing myself here. This bill, if passed, has the potential to upend my life. It is legally overbroad, it is discriminatory, and it is unconstitutional. This bill appears to do nothing more than attempt to invalidate the Supreme Court's ruling in Bostock v. Clayton County. By defining away the existence of transgender people, then they cannot be given the equality through the ruling in Bostock. There is no compelling governmental interest for the state of Arizona to radically and incorrectly redefine sex as binary. None of the single-sex environments in the bill are things which depend on the reproductive potential, which are the words used in the bill, of the organs of a person. Therefore, this bill fails strict scrutiny. You can argue athletics, but the mere presence of testicles does not create an athletic advantage. It is testosterone. You can argue living facilities or bathrooms or locker rooms, and I'm going to wonder out loud, Senator Kavanaugh, what you think goes on in those places that a person's reproductive organs matter. You can argue domestic violence and sexual assault centers, and I will tell you that trans women, myself included, have been raped and beaten at prodigious rates. We are the ones who need the crisis centers. Being discriminated against and rejected from them is the worst thing. The law cannot redefine reality. You can pass a bill that says the sky is MAGA hat red, but the sky is still blue, whether you say so or not. Sex is not binary. Sex is bimodal. Intersex people exist, and there are biological reasons why. If you spend an hour on Wikipedia, you'll find it out. And if you don't want to do that, go look in your Bibles. Jesus Christ, in Matthew 19:12, recognizes trans and intersex people. So shame on those who would vote yes on this bill for trying to legislate their own constituents out of existence. I often wonder why the sponsors of this bill and bills like it are so fascinated with the genitals of others, especially the genitals of children. If you think they're going to catch a bunch of trans girls by doing genital inspections, remember that between trans and intersex people, most generously, we're about 2.7% of the population, about the population of Tempe. That means that at best, for every one trans girl or intersex person someone finds on a 9-year-old soccer team, that's 37 of your daughters that are getting groped by some stranger, being subjected to this humiliating treatment. For their sake, and for my own, and for all the people in this room who are here to speak out against this bill, listen to your constituents. Don't vote what you think is right. Vote what we're telling you is right. Vote no on this bill. And I'm open to questions.
Questions for the speaker?
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair, Gabby, can you tell me please how this bill denies transgender people their right to freedom of expression?
Well, I like going to pee when I'm at work. And technically speaking, if this bill passes, it would override Bostock, which means my employer would be able to fire me for using the wrong restroom. So I would not be able to express myself by going pee. Because at one point in my life, I had testicles that worked. And therefore, whatever I've got going on now, I have to use a men's room.
Thank you again.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you very much for your testimony. Absolutely. Who do we have next?
Andrea, then Manico, then Theresa Fisher.
Do we have Andrea? Okay. Do we have Manico?
And
I think we have one. All right, please state your name for the record. Just move that mic down so it's right in front of your mouth, and go ahead.
Miniko Archer. Hi, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished members of the committee. My name is Miniko Archer, and I represent the nonprofit organization, thepeoplefirstproject.org. My pronouns are she, her, hers. Today, I stand before you to oppose a bill that seeks to erase the identities of transgender and non-binary as well as intersex individuals by limiting the legal recognition of gender to only male and female. Our team just had to get emergency housing for a 14-year-old transgender identifying child into emergency housing because they were kicked out of their parents due to how they identify. This proposal is not merely a bureaucratic adjustment, it is a direct affront to the dignity, rights, and lives of countless people in our society that have committed no crime and are tax-paying, legally voting citizens that also voted you guys into office. The government has recognized the importance of protecting transgender and non-binary individuals for a reason. These protections were put in place to combat the hate crimes and violence that disproportionately affect these communities. By acknowledging and validating their identities, we are taking a crucial step towards ensuring their safety, acceptance, and belonging in our society. To strip away this recognition is to ignore the very real and very dangerous consequences that come with it. This bill sends a harmful message. that the identities of transgender, intersex, and non-binary individuals are not valid, that their existence is secondary, and that their experiences and struggles do not matter. It is a message that reinforces stigma and discrimination, contributing to a culture where hate can thrive. We must ask ourselves, how many more lives must be lost to violence and hate before we recognize the urgency of this issue? We are all a part of the human race, and it is imperative that we treat each other with the respect and dignity that every individual deserves. Gender is not a binary concept for everyone. It is a spectrum that encompasses a diverse range of identities and experiences. By limiting legal recognition to only two genders, we are effectively erasing the lived realities of many individuals who do not fit neatly into one of these categories. Moreover, this bill undermines the progress that we have made toward inclusivity and understanding today. It is crucial that we foster an environment where all individuals can thrive, regardless of how they identify. It is not just a matter of legal terminology. It is about affirming the humanity of every person. It is about ensuring that everyone has the right to exist freely and authentically in society without fear of discrimination or violence. In closing, I urge you to consider the impact of this legislation, not only on legal documents, but on the lives of real people. Let us not regress into a past marked by exclusion and intolerance. Instead, let us stand together in solidarity, protecting those who are vulnerable and reaffirming our commitment to a society where everyone is valued for who they are. I urge you to please vote no on this highly discriminatory, unconstitutional, dangerous, and hate-based bill. We have the opportunity to lead with compassion and understanding. Let us not squander it. I also will be happy to answer any questions, and thank you all for your time and consideration, and may God bless America.
Any questions? Okay, and just to clarify, are you representing yourself, or are you a registered lobbyist representing the organization?
So I'm representing myself, but I am with the organization.
Got it, okay, thank you. Okay, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
Theresa Fisher, then Marina Cabanillas Quintana, then Catherine Warren.
They're challenging you with some of those names. Doing a good job. All right.
Hello, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. My name is Dr. Theresa Fisher. I am a research scientist here in Tempe. Thank you for having me to speak today. I am here to speak out against HB 2062. This bill is ostensibly motivated, at least in part, by a desire to keep women safe. However, there has been no statistical evidence over multiple studies that requiring trans people to use the spaces that do not align with their gender identity, as this bill could potentially, leads to the non-transgender population being any safer at all. There is, unfortunately, considerable evidence, however, that forcing trans people, and trans women especially, to use men's spaces puts us at significantly higher risks of harm. Therefore, for those out there who support this bill, if you are laboring under the assumption that trans women are somehow immune to sexual assault and harassment, I regret to inform you that is unfortunately most certainly not the case. And if there's anyone out there who perhaps thinks that we deserve such treatment, maybe because you find our identities offensive or somehow think it will dissuade us from being trans, all I can say is you have my pity, for it is my belief that your God will not forgive you for what you've done. Thank you.
Any questions for the speaker?
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, Senator Kavanaugh.
Thank you. I just want to go on record. I have been involved in discussions and debates on this issue for years. I have never advanced the position, and not that many people with my position advance the position, that transgendered people are sexually violent predators that will prey on biological females. This is a matter of privacy. That's all.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much for your testimony. All right, who do we have next?
Marina, then Catherine Warren, then Paul Bixler.
Okay, any of those folks here? Okay, who do we have after that?
Jeannie Woodbury, then Robert Nordham.
We've got one. All right, state your name for the record, and who you represent, if anyone.
Yes, I kind of missed what you were saying, Chairperson. Did you call up Paul Bixler, correct?
Have we called Bixler? Yes. we have.
Right, yeah, I just want to make sure. I thought that he had gone on to somewhere else. Thank you very much. Chairperson Hoffman, Senators, my name is Paul Bixler. I rise in opposition to House Bill 2062. Two noble truths. First, we exist. We always have, we always will. Second, being transgender is not a choice. I do not choose to be transgender. Nobody does. I have benefited far more when presented as a tall, athletic white male than I ever have as a 75-year-old transgendered woman. The unceasing effort by the Arizona State Legislature to deny and eradicate our existence is premeditated decimation at its worst and overt bigotry at its best. It is dishonorable that so much energy, money, and time is spent in these efforts to intentionally cause harm to citizens of Arizona, when these resources could be better used to support the funding of public education so that our public schools are not forced to beg our district residents for building bonds and overrides. What are you afraid of? Please vote no.
Any questions for the testifier? Okay, Senator Kavanaugh.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do you think that the current system where biological males who identify as male are not allowed into the female bathroom, locker room, or shower, do you think that that erases biological males' identity?
Chairperson,
It's a trick
Senator
question. so
Kavanaugh,
think.
I believe that there's an overt effort to erase transgendered women. I have not put any thought into males as biological males or not.
Okay.
To be honest, I can't give you an answer because
Okay.
I've never really given it much thought.
All right, Mr. Chair, just think about it, and we'll do that when we get to the House hearing.
Well, I'm sorry, Chairperson, Senator Kavanaugh, the issue is access. What you're talking about is whether or not access. And for me, the problem is when I tried to use a man's bathroom, that's where I got assaulted. So the issue for me is more specific than what you're asking.
Mr. Chair, just a final. For you, it's about access. For me, it's about privacy. That's where we differ.
Well, and Chairperson Hoffman, Senator Kavanaugh, the question you had asked earlier about the curtain and so on, that's an easy answer. You wrap yourself in a towel. That's what most women do. They wrap themselves, they don't like walking around naked. They wrap themselves in a towel,
Mr. Chair,
and then they shower.
Please explain the mechanism where you can shower with the towel wrapped around yourself.
You don't. There's a curtain. You pull the curtain, then you take the towel off.
Mr. Chair, I won't repeat what we went over last time, but there are no shower curtains in communal school showers.
If you want to get into the
No,
line of
no,
questions.
And there are shower curtains. I am a coach. I know what locker rooms look like.
Well, you know what your locker rooms look like.
Well,
You don't know what they all
I've
look
been in locker rooms,
So,
private and public.
okay, any other questions?
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, Senator Diaz.
Mr. Chair, Paul, how would this bill lead to increase?
I'm sorry, I didn't
How
hear
would
you.
this, Paul, how would this bill lead to increased harassment?
Chairperson Hoffman, Senator Diaz, I have a good example. I just mentioned it. The harassment is about what I use. I have always used women's bathrooms when they were available. Again, that's access. The only time I was ever harassed in a bathroom was in a man's bathroom. They questioned why I was in there. It is not safe.
Thank you, Paul.
I happen to be somebody that thinks they can handle themselves. So the threat, I figured I could handle, but it was there.
Well, to that point,
Yeah.
did you tell them you were in the men's room because you're a biological male? Didn't that resonate with them?
Chairperson Hoffman, Senator Kaufman, that person was uninterested in what I felt.
Okay, so, Mr. Chairman, so we're supposed to basically.
You know what, Senator Kavanaugh, I appreciate you recognizing my pronouns, which are chairman. rather than chairperson, so.
Thank you, Chairperson Hoffman.
Okay. All right.
Okay,
He's got to go.
yeah, you gotta go.
Yeah. I let him know what
Time-
Senator Wendy said that you found so funny. Can we get that on the record? Thanks for showing up late to this meeting. You don't have to
Time,
say anything to me.
time for you to leave.
Yeah, I'm done.
All right, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you very much.
All right, who do we have next?
Jeannie Woodbury, then Robert Nordham.
All right.
Hello, Chairman Hoffman, members of the committee. I'm Jean Woodbury. I'm here on behalf of Planned Parenthood of Arizona and ACLU of Arizona, asking that you vote no on this bill. We see a number of legal issues with this bill in the definition of sex, particularly. So reviewing existing statute that references terms like female and sex, what we found is that, especially in criminal statute, what would be affected most is a collection of about 7 to 8 statutes that reference certain kinds of sexual crimes, which currently are crimes whether they're committed against cis women or trans women, but under the more strict definitions in this bill, without their own amendments, would now no longer apply as sex crimes when committed against transgender women and girls. That's one of the concerns. We also have to look at how current non-discrimination law defines sex. I know we mentioned that we need a definition of sex to enforce sex discrimination, and we do have a definition for on the basis of sex in our current non-discrimination law, which includes things like pregnancy. Now, the problem that I see in this bill is that when we define sex so strictly, we actually run into an issue of being able to include protections for pregnancy or for sexual characteristics between members of the same sex. So, for example, in a hiring process, 2 women with equal qualifications, one is more feminine, one is less feminine, hiring one of those over the other specifically because of those sexual characteristics would be illegal sex discrimination.
To the point.
Yeah.
Since when did attractiveness become a sexual characteristic?
Chairman, Senator Kavanaugh, I don't think that femininity is inherently a scale of attractiveness. I think you can be very attractive and, less feminine or more feminine as a woman. So I don't really know how exactly to answer that question in terms of what I was speaking to, but this erases the ability to protect people from that kind of discrimination because it is so strictly defined. So that's something we need to be careful of when we're creating these definitions, not because of edge cases, which of course I do think are important, but because this rewrite some of the fundamental expectations people have when they're going about their everyday life, whether they're seeking prosecution of sex crimes that have been committed against them, or whether they're looking for basic sex protections on the basis of pregnancy or other sexual characteristics.
Mr. Chair?
Thank you.
Yes.
I'm kind of puzzled. So you're saying under existing Arizona statute, if I was a company that, say, made clothing, right, and I hired a agency to do some ads for me, that one of the applicants to be a model could sue me claiming that I picked a more attractive model, that the appearance of people, the attractiveness can't be used in situations like advertising? What Arizona statute would be in violation if somebody said, I selected this person because they looked nicer, more attractive? What law is that a violation of?
Chairman Hoffman, Senator Kavanaugh, there are specific differences for hiring performers where you can make decisions based on their perceived attractiveness.
So Mr. Chair, what section of law deals with the non-performers and says that if somebody's hired and they're and they assert that they were not hired because they're less attractive, that this is a civil rights violation. What law are we talking about here? Because I'm not aware of it. Do you have a section, or could you email that to us at some future date?
Chairman Hoffman, Senator Kavanaugh, I can absolutely email that to you. That's pretty much a basic precept. But again, I'm not talking about attractiveness. I'm talking about femininity and levels of that. I don't think that being more feminine or less feminine is automatically more or less attractive.
I mean, that's an opinion, so, okay, great, fine.
Right.
Okay, any questions? Okay, thank you very much for your testimony.
Thank you.
Robert Nordum, then Christy Norse, then Christine Nelson.
All right. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I'm Robert Nordman. I'm a resident of Tempe, Arizona, and I'm here representing myself. This bill seeks to violate the rights and dignity of transgender, non-binary, intersex, and other gender non-conforming individuals. It seeks to establish a narrow and unscientific view of sex and gender, establishing the use of biological sex for a variety of government services. It seeks to exclude trans, non-binary, intersex, and gender non-conforming individuals from their appropriate facilities, shelters, sexual assault centers, sexual assault crisis centers, and restrooms. It's nothing less than an attack on the transgender rights and is disgusting. It should be shot down. It is designed to justify additional discrimination against some of our most vulnerable of our population, and is a complete disgust. Thank you for your time. Is there any questions?
Questions for the speaker? Okay, thank you very much for your testimony.
Christy Norse, then Christine Nelson, then Robert Wallace.
Thank you, Chairman Hoffman. I'm Christine Narcy.
Why don't you move that table down a little bit? There's two arrows on the right-hand side. There
Yes,
we go.
I'm 5'2".
We try
Thank
to
you.
accommodate everybody, regardless of their height.
Appreciate that. Short people probs is what they call that. Thank you, Chairman Hoffman and members of the Senate Committee on Government. My name is Christine Narcy, and I'm National Chapter Director at Independent Women, which has a strong Arizona presence, and the Independent Women Phoenix Chapter Chair. However, my proudest title is mom to two daughters my husband and I raised here in Arizona, one who is actually with me today. And I'm here today once again to testify in favor of Arizona House Bill 2062. The Arizona Sex-Based Terms Act. The Arizona legislature already passed this legislation, but Governor Hobbs vetoed it. This is the year this legislation should become law. HB 2062 really is a simple housekeeping measure intended to ensure that laws passed by the legislature are applied as this body intended and not twisted by judges and bureaucrats. This bill does not prevent Arizona legislature from passing laws to protect certain groups in specific contexts, but it will prevent males who identify as women from claiming they have an automatic right to access women's spaces in all circumstances. This legislation will help stop legal challenges to single-sex spaces by those who believe government should never separate males and females in sports, in prisons, domestic violence shelters, etc. HB 2062 does three very important things. First, it defines certain words already used in state code, words such as man, woman, male, and female. Why? Because when these laws were passed, it was assumed that these words were tied to biology. Today, activists say that these words lack objective meaning. They say that they are defined by subjective feelings rather than objective reality. This bill simply clarifies the original public meaning of statutes that use sex-based words at the time they were passed. Second, this bill ensures the publicly collected data regarding males and females reflects biology. It's critically important that data used to promote public health, prevent crime, enforce civil rights laws, and ensure economic and social policy be objective and accurate. That said, it does not prevent entities that collect data about men and women from also collecting data about gender identity. Third, it clarifies the state's interest in protecting certain single-sex spaces, where doing so advances equal opportunity, privacy, safety, or fairness. HB 2062 is not a bathroom bill. It does not mandate that Arizona provide any particular type of bathroom or prevent accommodating people who need single-use private bathrooms. This bill helps protect spaces already designated as single-sex, such as prisons or athletic teams, such as prisons and athletic teams, from legal attack. HB 2062 is a tool for fighting judicial activism and returns power to you, the legislature, to decide how and in which context it is appropriate to separate citizens by sex. I ask you to please vote yes on HB 2062. And unfortunately, I'm not available to answer questions. My daughter, who is with me, has created an ova, and we are going to see my first grandbaby on an ultrasound right now.
Awesome. Very cool. All right. Thank you very much for your testimony. Who do we have next? Senator Farnsworth.
Christine Nelson, then Robert Wallace, then Saya Smith.
Good morning, Senator Hoffman, Chairman, and members of the committee. I am Christine Nelson. I'm a 30-plus year retired teacher and high school swimming coach in the state of Arizona, and I currently coach at a private club in the Valley. I'm here to read on behalf of an LPGA Tour pro golfer. This is Dana Fall's story in support of Arizona House Bill 2062. Dana Fall is a local Arizonan and an ambassador at Independent Women. Fall has been playing golf since she was a kid. She played all through high school and earned herself a scholarship to play for the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. After graduating college, Fall decided to pursue golf professionally. In 2017, her rookie year, Fall won the Epson Tour. She qualified for the Ladies Professional Golf Association, LPGA Tour, soon after and has been a pro ever since. Fall and hundreds of other female athletes were forced to share the course with and compete against Haley Davidson, a trans-identifying male who won multiple women's golf events, including the NXXT Women's Classic in January of 2024. Davidson's presence at the Q School, which is the first in a series of qualifying tournaments for the LPGA, motivated more than 200 female golfers, including Dana Fall, to speak out against the unfair competition. The physical advantages male athletes have, including those who undergo hormone therapy or other sex change treatments, as Davidson did, have that advantage over female athletes, and it's considerable. Fall explained, male golfers not only have more physical power, which means they can drive the ball much further, but they also have greater physical endurance. This gives them an advantage on days when athletes have to play lengthy courses, as well as courses at higher altitude and in many other circumstances in other sports. 100% of the people Dana has talked to agree that it doesn't make sense, it's not fair, and it's something that needs to stop. I hate that it's become a political issue, says Dana Fall. Fall says she hopes other female golfers will join her in the fight to protect fair competition, even if they're not sure how to get involved or what to say, and even if they're nervous about stepping into the spotlight. As Fall herself was, what matters is doing what is right, she said. The majority of the world agrees on this issue. It may not seem like you have support, but there are a lot of people starting to wake up. Personally, as a coach, a swim coach, I have a co-ed team. I have girls all in swimsuits, boys all in Speedos. They are all together on the bus. I cannot imagine putting young men into heats and races with my young 14 to 18-year-old girls. That would be extremely unfair. I really appreciate your time. I appreciate all your questions. I am probably able to answer questions, although I didn't expect to, but I'm willing to based on my experience here in Arizona.
Any questions? Okay, thank you very much for your testimony.
Robert Wallace, then Seek Smith.
Hello.
Chairman Hoffman and the committee. My name is Robert Wallace, and I'm with an organization called Gays Against Groomers. We stand in full support of HB 2062. This bill is not about exclusion. It's about clarity, truth, and protection of fundamental rights for both men and women. This bill it defends biological reality. This bill ensures that laws and policies and regulations are rooted in biological, objective biological, not subjective identity claims. A stable science-based definition of sex is essential for upholding legal protections for women, men, and children. This bill protects women's rights and spaces. HB 2062 safeguards sex-segregated spaces such as women's shelters, domestic violence centers, and locker rooms from policies that compromise safety. It guarantees fairness in women's sports, preventing biological males from taking scholarships and opportunities from female athletes. Preventing legal chaos and loopholes, this bill defines sex, and so that the legal system can be free of the exploitation of those vulnerable loopholes where biological males gain access to spaces, resources, and privileges meant for women. This bill ensures that laws are consistent and enforceable, protecting the integrity of sex-based rights. This bill maintains accurate data, or allows for the maintaining of accurate data and public health standards. Public institutions, from schools to hospitals, rely on biologically accurate data for crime reports, medical research, and policy decisions. The removal of sex-based definitions leads to misleading statistics that harm women's safety, health care, and legal protections. This bill rejects ideological coercion. HB 2062 prevents compelled speech by ensuring that legal documents do not redefine words based on ideology rather than fact. The law is meant to serve all citizens equally, not to cater to activist demands that erase sex-based protections. This bill does not discriminate. It upholds fairness, safety, and biological reality. It ensures that Arizona law remains clear, objective, and protective of all citizens, especially the most vulnerable. We urge the legislature to stand with women, stand with science, and stand with truth, and vote yes on HB 2062. If you have any questions.
Any questions? Okay, thank you very much for your testimony.
Seek Smith.
And I think you are our final testifier today. So.
Chairman Hoffman, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak today in support of HB 2062, a critical piece of legislation that ensures clarity, consistency, and fairness in Arizona's laws and public policies. This bill establishes clear biological definitions of sex-based terms such as male, female, man, and woman, ensuring that legal and policy decisions are based on objective scientific reality rather than shifting social ideologies. My name is Seek Smith. I am the founder of Mom Army and Dad Army. We are a survivor-led organization working collectively to protect children from exploitation across the nation. So my chapter leaders in over a dozen states are working diligently with lawmakers across our country. I'm speaking from the perspective of a parent. You know, I have 3 children. My daughter is attending public school here in Chandler as a high schooler. And I want to speak to the strengthening of parental rights and educational integrity for this bill. Parents have the right to know that their children's school are using clear and accurate definitions of sex and gender. This bill helps maintain transparency in educational policies and ensures that schools do not promote ideologies that conflict with biological science and parental beliefs. In conclusion, HB 2062 is a common sense measure that protects the rights, privacy, and safety of all Arizonans. It ensures that laws remain consistent, fair, and scientifically sound. I urge this committee to support HB 2062 and uphold the fundamental distinctions between male and female that serve as the foundation for many of our laws and protections. I also want to speak to the fact that, you know, many of the parents in my organization and groups that I work with across the country are very concerned about the trajectory of, our societal shifting with what we're doing. Specifically, when you look at enrollment in public schools, it's dropping rapidly because parents are concerned about privacy issues and the concerns for safety. And so I urge everyone here to please support HB 2062. Thank you so much for your time and the opportunity to speak.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Okay, thank you for your testimony. All right, is there anyone else that we missed that wanted to speak? Okay, then with that, let's get closing comments by Representative Fink, and then we'll move the bill.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, as has been very well articulated by some of the testimony for the bill, that this is really a housekeeping measure intended to ensure that the laws that have been passed are enacted and upheld as they were originally intended. And definitely, this is not making any new rights, is not creating any problems with discrimination or anything like that. This is mainly, like I said, a housekeeping bill and to ensure fairness and equality and privacy rights. So thank you for this time, and I'm asking you to vote yes.
Okay. All righty. Let's move the bill. Madam Vice Chair.
I move HB 2062 receive a due pass recommendation.
All right, members, you've heard the motion. I don't think there's any further discussion, so let's call the roll.
Mr. Chair, if I can explain my vote.
You may.
I want to thank everybody for taking time out of their busy days to be here today. HB 2062 is an attempt to rewrite our laws, and in doing so jeopardizes the safety of people who are trans, intersex, and non-binary, while also rescinding basic rights of women by codifying a narrow and outdated definition of sex and gender into our laws. So I vote no.
Mr. Chair, explain my vote. This bill would do nothing more than legally erase the existence of trans, intersex, non-binary, and any other person that does not fit into a rigid definition of sex, male or female. We discussed the statistics earlier, and although it's rare, these people who exist in our communities, they do exist in our communities, and our job as legislators is to govern for every Arizonan, not just for those in the largest groups. But aside from those instances, gender identity is not a subjective sense of self, as this bill asserts. By denying the existence of any person who does not fit into these rigid definitions on birth certificates, driver's licenses, and any other government documents, this denies their very right to exist in our society. When a trans person is forced to show an ID that doesn't match who they are, or use a restroom that doesn't match their identity, they can face harassment, discrimination, and violence. This bill will have real dangerous consequences for many Arizonans, and for that reason, I vote no.
Senator Farnsworth? Aye. Senator Kavanaugh?
Aye.
Senator Kubik?
Mr. Chairman, may I explain my vote? It takes a lot of courage to come to the legislature, and I know there was a report in the Arizona Agenda how many trans folk and LGBTQ plus are actually afraid to come and speak in our halls because they are afraid of further discrimination. And that disturbs me. I spoke to 2 constituents who called me. They are the parents of trans kids, and they don't feel safe coming because they don't want to expose their kids to further harassment, further discrimination. I needed to make that comment. Also, the city of Tempe back 11 years ago passed and enhanced its anti-discrimination ordinance to protect and prohibit discrimination in housing, employment, and public accommodation on the basis of sexual orientation and gender identity. One of the points we haven't made today is this is going to impact charter cities, many of whom have adopted laws to protect against discrimination, and we're denying the rights of local decision makers to protect their community, and that's another consequence of this discriminatory bill. We heard the sponsor describe this as a housekeeping measure, but to me, it's fundamentally a discriminatory measure. I need to point out that we often hear the chairman ask people who they represent, and I realize the sponsor does represent herself and her legislative interests, but she's also the president of the Protect Arizona Children Coalition.
Tread carefully.
I will.
But the Arizona Children Coalition, according to Lookout News, spreads disinformation about gender identity and sexual orientation. And actually, the website I tried to go to it last night, it redirects to Family Watch International, which is identified as a hate group by the Southern Poverty Law Center. Right, I understand. So we need to talk, pardon?
You're opening yourself up to defamation lawsuits. Tread carefully.
I will tread carefully. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, you know, we look at all these bills that we're looking at. They're fundamentally about discrimination. It doesn't matter if the percentage of population is 0.0001%. If we identify a class of people and seek to discriminate and take away their rights, take away their life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, to me, that is the very essence of our democracy. And to discriminate as lawmakers when we have so many issues to deal with, the first issues we seem to really want to focus on are ones that will actually remove people's rights. I vote no.
Mr. Chair?
Yep.
As the mother of 2 and grandmother of 7, I vote aye.
Aye. Members, by a vote of 4 ayes, 3 noes, and 0 not voting, you've given us HB 2062 a do pass recommendation. All right. We are going to move back to House Bill 2221. We have the bill sponsor here, so I think slightly less controversial. So we've already introed the bill, so come on up and give us your introduction, and then if there's any questions, we'll let you stand for questions.
All right, Mr. Chair, members, Representative Dave Marshall from LD7, the greatest district in the state. 2221, give a little history. Last year, this bill passed through the House, passed through this chamber here, and also went to third read, but was, for whatever reason, was pulled off a third read, and I never received an explanation. All this bill is a bill to...
Mr. Marshall, that was a Ken Bennett issue. So Ken's no longer at the legislature now, so you should be fine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Just wanted to make sure there was clarity there for you.
Thank you. And basically, if you recall the past few years, when we had the COVID, when we had the incidents that were happening over in Seattle, in Portland, Oregon, in New York and all that, where they allowed all these different groups to run amok and terrorize their towns. Most of these towns defunded their police. Matter of fact, I believe it was Minnesota that defunded almost the entire police department. And shortly after that, after the town was lit on fire, thefts, robberies, and even some homicides occurred, they were deathly trying to get their officers back. Today, Portland, Oregon, still cannot get officers back. They are giving a $45,000 sign-on bonus just to get police officers. Now, people here will say, well, why do we need this here? Well, we have a lot of activists that are still screaming about defunding the police here in Phoenix, defunding the police in our state. Can you imagine if we defunded our police in our state, which right now, Phoenix Police Department is almost 600 officers down. DPS is 500 officers down. And we defunded our police in this state, we would be in the same position, the same condition, a lot of these other states such as New York, Chicago, LA, Seattle. And so this is a bill that is a proactive bill. This here, the argument is, well, what if we don't have the money to do this? What if our budgets don't allow us to pay these officers? Well, the bill says if you take $100 million, just as an example, you take $100 million out of your budget, out of the police budget, then you're expected to not receive $100 million from our state revenue. Now, if you have a budget shortfall for whatever reason, this doesn't apply. What it says in the bill is that if you're going to be cutting budgets, that you cut the budgets equally, but we asked in this bill that you cut law enforcement and fire last, because that is our front line to crime in our community. Our community, like I said, is right now is short of law enforcement officers. We need our law enforcement officers. Matter of fact, we need more law enforcement officers. And so, again, just to make it short, this is a proactive bill. If we do not do anything to protect our citizens and our law enforcement officers that we barely have, we're going to be reactive, and it's going to be hard to keep officers and bring officers on. And we're seeing that around the country right now. People do not want to be police officers because of what has transpired in the past few years. And I stand for any questions.
Any questions for Representative Marshall? Yeah,
Mr. Chair.
Senator Kuby.
Yes, can you give examples the past 15 years of where a city or town or jurisdiction has cut?
Hold on. He already proactively responded to that line of questioning.
Yes, he spoke about Oregon.
He said this is a proactive bill looking across the country at trends that have occurred and the damage that it's caused. And so because there are activists advocating for this, including some city council members in Phoenix.
Correct.
He's trying to be proactive here. I mean, this is something legislators are supposed to be proactive. Our job is to look across the country and see where are the political winds going, what's good, what's bad, what's a worst practice.
Mr. Chair, may I redirect?
And then do those here so that we don't run into issues that other people have seen.
To that point?
Yeah, Senator Kavanaugh.
Yeah, I would point out that when we were talking about getting rid of the rental tax, a number of municipal leaders said police and fire and public safety will be cut. Clearly, that's what they do first. They cut police and fire. This bill is necessary.
Well, Senator Kavanaugh, to that point, why do they cut those? Why do they threaten to cut those ones first?
I don't know. As opposed to the arts fund, I'm bewildered.
Yeah, it seems like a cudgel on the public, right? It's the thing that nobody wants cut, so they threaten that first. And this would essentially protect against that false narrative that often occurs in municipalities.
Mr. Chairman, may I redirect my question?
Sure.
So is this a solution in search of a problem? And to explain, I want to know why we should put budgetary constraints on cities to address a problem that doesn't exist in our state.
Okay, he's already answered this, Senator Kuby.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair, to that point, I understand what you're saying, but I am bringing forward a different argument, which is to say we don't have this. Why are we addressing this in statute when we don't have this problem?
He has answered
and
that.
haven't had
I
this
have
problem.
answered that, and Senator Kavanaugh has answered that already. Because we don't want it to occur. And so
Mr.
the
Chair.
best way to prevent something from occurring that has long-term detrimental impact to law enforcement and public safety is to prevent it from ever happening in the first place. This is not a hard concept.
To that point?
Representative Marshall, did I say that incorrectly?
Mr. Chairman, no.
Okay, Senator Kavanaugh.
Is a vaccination a solution searching for a problem?
Sure seemed like it.
Well, Mr. Chair, may I redirect my question?
You can try again, sure.
Okay, so why are the cities of Casa Grande, Avondale, Glendale, Gilbert, Goodyear, Sedona, Bisbee, Mariana, Florence, Winslow, Sarita, Maricopa, Oro Valley, Chandler, Scottsdale, Tempe,
Just
Elm
add
Lodge,
an
why are they
just add an et al in there. We get it.
at all? So why are so many cities opposed, do you think? These aren't cities that you typically think of as
Representative
wanting
Marshall,
to defund the
let me
police.
just try and clarify that for her. Do the cities regularly oppose any bill that would preempt them?
Mr. Chairman, that's correct. They do.
Well,
And Mr. Chairman, when I hear from these cities, it's all about local control. You're trying to take away local control, and it has nothing to do with local control. It has to do with keeping our law enforcement officers on the streets doing their jobs to protect the citizens of our city and our state here. Has nothing to do with local control. They still control. They still have a budget. We don't take from the budget. If they have a shortfall, the budget doesn't apply, and it's covered, they're protected. This is to make sure that we do not lose more officers because we are so short as it is. And if you look around the country, New York, since their issues that they had, there are thousands, over 3,000 officers down, and nobody wants to be police officers because of what has transpired in our country, what has transpired in these cities. And so, again, this here is more of a proactive so that we don't get to that point. And if we get to that point, then we're going to be in the same position as all these other cities that are trying to get officers to save their state, to save their cities. And I don't want to see this, and many don't want to see this happening in our state.
Okay, seems reasonable. Any other questions? Okay. thought we might get a 6 times the charm kind of attempt here. So, all right, let's go ahead and move the bill.
I move HB 2221, receive a due pass recommendation.
2221. All right, members, you've heard the motion. There is apparently no further discussion, so let's call the roll.
Mr. Chair, if I explain my vote.
You may.
Thank you. I understand this is proactive, but Mr. Marshall, you know, I met with the state troopers yesterday. I met with Joe Clary, I think twice this session. I asked him, what are your priority bills? This is not one of them. I saw he signed in support. I think that's something friendly of him to do. But I don't understand what we're doing here. There's no serious efforts from elected officials in Arizona to defund law enforcement. So living in the reality of today, and even looking as a legislator coming from the city of Phoenix, every year the city of Phoenix expands the budget for law enforcement. So I vote no.
No.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, may I explain my vote?
Absolutely.
So as on the City of Tempe Council, we had a task force that identified reforms that we could enact in the City of Tempe's Police Department. And we did actually redirect some funds from the police budget to human services so we could transfer phone calls that were more social work related and take that burden away from the police department. We actually had their support in that. They said, please, we don't think we should be in the business of attending to these calls, and this would be a great help. So we had the police union support to do that. We also, consequently, we were unfreezing some positions. So in the end, it didn't amount to a decrease in the police budget that year. But there are situations where cities want flexibility, where they may be eliminating some program that's in the police department, transferring it over to another, and it's not necessarily eliminating that program, that enforcement capability or whatever project it is, but it's sort of redirecting. Cities want flexibility. And you're right, like it is about local decision making. It is about cities having the authority to design a police force and enforcement that matches the needs of their citizenry. And for this reason and more, I vote no, and I just ask that we think about the impacts of these bills on cities that require flexibility, and then acknowledging that I don't think this is a problem. It is definitely one of those cases where it's a solution in search of a problem. Thank you.
Strong, aye.
Here's a headline from our own Cronkite News. Movement to defund police gains urgency in Arizona. Go down just a little bit, and it says in Phoenix, Tucson, Mesa, Glendale, and elsewhere in Arizona, reformers are calling on city councils to redirect funds to such areas as mental health services and in some cases to disband their police departments entirely. This is not a problem, a solution in search of a problem. This is a proactive solution to a real problem that has long-lasting harmful effects on our communities. I vote aye. Members, by a vote of 4 ayes, 3 nays, and 0 not voting, you've given HB 2221 a due pass recommendation. With no further business before the committee, we are adjourned.